I wish to warmly welcome the Secretary General, His Excellency António Guterres, and give him the floor.
Sire,
Your Majesties, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished members of the Security Council, Mr. Ismail Shergi, Madam Jo Becker, on today, the International Day Against the Use of Child Soldiers, I am pleased to brief you on the practical guidance for mediators to protect children in situations of armed conflict. Children simply have no role in conflict. And yet, as has been mentioned by Graca Machel in her landmark 1996 report, millions of children are caught up in conflicts in which they are not merely bystanders, but targets. Children below the age of 18 constitute more than 50% of the population in most countries afflicted by war, and they are unable to protect themselves from this impact. Children are among the most vulnerable. Some 250 million children live in countries affected by conflict. In 2018, more than 12,000 children were killed or maimed in conflict. These are the highest numbers since 1996. 1996, when the General Assembly created the mandate of the Special Representative for Children in Armed Conflict, more than 24,000 violations were documented and verified, compared with 21,000 in 2017. Attacks targeting hospitals and schools deny children education, health care, and the life-saving emergency assistance, and they force families to flee their homes. In war zones, children are often subjected to horrific abuses, including sexual violence and abduction. Some are trained in the use of deadly weapons or exploited as cooks and messengers. These violations cause lasting damage and trauma to the children themselves and communities and societies in which they belong. They fuel grievances and frustration that creates a vicious cycle of tension and violence. Sir.
for its systematic engagement on this issue in several resolutions over the past 21 years. We have made some progress in raising awareness of violations, partly due to the monitoring and reporting mechanism established by this Council in 2005. The statistics this mechanism has yielded are incomplete, but they paint a damning picture and raise questions of responsibility and compliance. Over time, they have the power to change behaviors, prevent grave violations, and protect children. My special representative is working to improve the protection of children from the Central African Republic to Myanmar and Yemen and everywhere else in the world. South Sudan is an example of the protection of children can bring parties to conflict together and build confidence and peace. Parties to the peace agreement signed a comprehensive joint action plan for the protection of children with the United Nations in the presence of my special representative for children and armed conflict in Juba last week. This comes at a crucial moment for South Sudan and has the potential to build confidence between the parties in the context of the peace process that is facing, as you know, many obstacles. Elsewhere, 12 parties to conflict have been removed from the list of those responsible for violations after complying with their commitments under an action plan. Sustained advocacy has led to changes in the law and better cooperation with government departments and the military. In Afghanistan, for example, child protection units have been established in every province, and the recruitment and use of children has been made a criminal offense. Campaigns including Children Not Soldiers and the new Act to Protect have helped to bring about a global consensus that children should never be used in conflict. However, despite these efforts, the figures for grave violations against children in conflict continue to rise. Greater awareness and better monitoring do not account for this increase. It is the result of ongoing and worsening hostilities and the shameful disregard for civilian lives. We must all do more. Mr. President, the practical guidance for mediators that we are launching today is the next step in our strategy to put children at the heart of protection, peace building, and prevention efforts. It recognizes that children's needs and rights must be considered during all phases of conflict, from prevention efforts to mediation and recovery through sustainable, inclusive development. The guidance is based on principles that outlaw discrimination and put children's interests first. It provides the means to conduct a child rights-based analysis of conflict for mediators and negotiators. And it welcomes the involvement and participation of children with appropriate support. By integrating specific measures to protect children into peace processes, we can achieve concrete results for children and for peace. When the FARC, the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, ended the recruitment and use of children, it helped to build confidence and created momentum to move the peace process forward. I thank all those who are involved in developing the guidance, especially my special representative, Ms. Virginia Gamba, the Department of Political and Peacebuilding Affairs, and the Department of Peace Operations, UNICEF, and other stakeholders who have direct experience in the fields of mediation and child protection in the civil society. And I strongly encourage all member states, regional and sub-regional organizations, mediators and other actors involved in peace processes to make full use of this guidance and to circulate it widely to achieve the greatest possible impact. But as important as this guidance is, it's not enough. I urge all member states to take concrete actions to prioritize the protection of children affected by conflict at the national, regional and global level. And my special representative stands ready to support all member states in these efforts, and in particular at the present moment doing so in Mali, Syria and Yemen. Mr. President, last September I stood on the North Lawn of the United Nations complex and looked around at 3,758 backpacks that had been laid out by UNICEF colleagues to resemble a graveyard. Each backpack represented a child killed in conflict during 2018. Standing in this cemetery of dreams was devastating, and I'm sure many of you experienced it for yourselves. It is our fundamental duty as leaders to do everything in our power to protect children, our future, from the chaos and madness of wars that have nothing to do with them. Together we are beginning to make progress, but we need to continue on that path, and I urge you to make it a priority for this Council. Thank you very much.
Je remercie.
I wish to thank the Secretary General for his